All right, hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about Reconstruction. And if you have to reconstruct something, then you're building it back. So that's where the term comes from in this unit. The idea is that we're just rebuilding the South and trying to make them capable of purchasing things and living their lives again without slavery. So the essential questions are: what is Reconstruction? Describe Lincoln's 10% plan, and describe the radical Republicans' Wade Davis bill. Why do you think that Lincoln vetoed it? Okay, so Reconstruction definition is a time period following the Civil War where the U.S. began to rebuild and the Confederacy is allowed to come back into the Union. So the Confederacy comes back in. We're now once again a whole United States under Reconstruction. We're building everything back, and we're rebuilding after the war from all the devastation and loss that we've had. So Lincoln wants to go easy on the South, and I hope you'll remember this. One of his probably greatest legacies, other than the Emancipation Proclamation and standing up to the South in this war, is that in the end he goes very easy on them. He wants them to want to come back in, and he doesn't want to make it difficult for them, because then they will be very resentful and perhaps we'll have this problem again with another civil war. So he wants to go easy on them, not be too harsh. He's going to come up with something called the 10% plan. 10%. So 10% plan. His 10% plan is to a pardon, which means let them go free. Okay, no jail time, nothing. Pardon all Confederate infantry, the boots on the ground, the soldiers. So they're not going to receive any kind of punishment for being in the Confederate Army. Number two, they have to swear allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Okay, so they will swear allegiance to the Union. Number three.
And Morgan Rush, please report to Ms. Brooks' room. Megan and Morgan Rush, please report to Ms. Brooks' room.
So number three, when 10% of this do that in one state, when you have 10% do this in one state, that means swear allegiance. 10% of them swear allegiance. That state can send representatives to Congress. So boom, they're back in as a state and they get representation in Congress. So again, why does Lincoln go easy on them? Because he knows that he needs to make the path easy to bring the South in. He can't make it hard for them to come in. They won't want to do it. Not that they really wanted to anyway, but he's trying to play nice, you know. So there's an expression that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And I use that a lot in teaching. Not as much as I should, but I use it. And the idea is if you're nice to people, they're more likely going to back down and be nice to you, especially if they're angry, than if you get all in their face. That would be the vinegar part. You don't want to use that. You want to use honey. Be nice and sweet. So he's going to be sweet to the South and kind and only require 10% of their infantry to come in and swear allegiance. Okay, radical Republicans are furious at this. They do not like this plan. Now remember, Lincoln is a Republican. These people are in his party and they do not agree. Can't imagine that, can you? So, and actual people in one party disagreeing with people in the same party. So they're mad. They want the South to be punished because of what they did to the slaves. This is led by Charles Sumner and Thaddeus Stevens. I have pictures. Here's Sumner. Dicey. Here's Stevens. Ooh. Okay. Sumner and Stevens, radical Republicans. They're going to say the South should be punished. Why are we playing nice, Lincoln? So they're going to pass something called the Wade Davis bill. It says Congress, not the president, is now responsible for Reconstruction, rebuilding. We want to empower African Americans, which that's a good thing. We want to pass the 14th and 15th Amendments. Those are also good things. Okay, the 14th Amendment is going to say equal protection under law. Everyone in America that's born here is a citizen. So they're going to say equal protection. That means extending rights to African Americans just as whites. Okay, and then the 15th Amendment says that African Americans have the right to vote. Okay, whew, that was a big deal. So they're going to say we empower them with giving them equal protection, 14th Amendment, and 15, giving them the right to vote. So those are good. They want military rule in the South to ensure African American voting rights are protected. Why? Because they knew that Southerners would try to prevent these African Americans from voting, and they were right. They want to prevent leaders of the Confederacy from ever taking office again in the United States government. So they don't want any former Confederates taking over. Okay? So they really want to empower African Americans here and protect their rights. So they're pretty strict on that. And the military rule in the South was going to be pretty severe on Southerners. Lincoln's going to do this. Okay, this is somebody's office referral. He's going to take that bill. I'm going to stand up. And he is going to put this in his pocket. Okay? So that's called a pocket veto. If a president pockets, as I did, a veto, that kills the bill. So it's going to die without a vote, basically, in a way. So he doesn't really vote on, he doesn't give his opinion directly. He's giving it indirectly. He's kind of pushing it aside and not addressing it. After so many days, it kills that bill. Okay, so why would he do this? Why wouldn't he just outright veto on it? Because he doesn't want to stir up these radical Republicans and start a whole controversy within his party. He doesn't need that. But he doesn't agree with their plan. He thinks, again, 10%, 10%. We should go a lot, oops, upside down. We should go a lot easier on these Southerners. We should not be so harsh. And military rule and all these things in the South is Wade Davis bill. Lincoln's successor, remember, of course, that Lincoln's going to be assassinated. His successor is Andrew Johnson. VP becomes P, 17th president, big unionist, big enemy of the South, and says, but, he allowed other Confederate states back in, and he will pardon Confederate generals. I think, and I've seen this before in American history, I think he really felt a burden and responsibility to carry out Lincoln's vision. So when Lincoln's assassinated, Johnson felt like he should carry through with what Lincoln wanted. So he does allow Confederate states back in. He pardons, frees, doesn't require jail time of the Confederate generals, and that's going to upset the radical Republicans. Okay, here's the Wade Davis bill that I just talked about. It also says a majority of the states' white males had to swear loyalty to the Union, not 10%. They're going to up the ante, a majority. And only white males who swore they had not voted against the Union could vote for delegates. Okay, it would also ban former Confederates from holding office, which we already said. So it's going to really be strict. Okay, here's Johnson, all right, 17th president of the United States. Okay, so then in comes the Freedmen's Bureau. Why don't I show you the picture while I've got it here? It says Freedmen's School. And you see all these African-American children and this white lady who is presumptively their teacher. So Freedmen's Bureau, keep that picture in mind. Freedmen's Bureau will give clothes, food, shelter to refugees in the South. And it is successful, very successful, in playing a key role in Reconstruction. They also educate these former slaves, so provide them education, clothes, food to help them. They are now freed men, and we want to help those people because remember they've come out of slavery. They have absolutely nothing to their name. Congress will says try to stop black codes which were restricting African Americans from carrying weapons, serving on juries, having their own businesses. So there's businesses. So black codes, Congress is going to try to stop this in the South, and it was supposed to, it's like Jim Crow early on. It was supposed to keep slaves in bondage, black codes, and it says worse than slavery. Laws passed by the South that limited the rights of African Americans. So Southerners are still going to be angry against everybody and take it out on the African Americans that are still there. All right, it says Congress is going to try to stop these codes with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which allowed African Americans to own property. Congress passes a 14th Amendment, I've already mentioned it, which says you cannot deprive life, liberty, or process without due process of law to anyone, and gives equal protection of the law to every citizen. Okay, here is an example of that. That's what it's saying there. No, you can't deprive anybody of life, liberty, property without due process. Equal protection is also known as the Equal Protection Amendment. Okay. All right. So it says Johnson attacks the amendment because he does not like the radical Republicans' Reconstruction plan. Not because he doesn't like the amendment, but because he thinks they're being too harsh on the South, making a majority of people swear allegiance. Johnson fires his Secretary of War, Stanton, which was illegal to do. You could not fire a cabinet member under the Tenure of Office Act. So the House of Representatives, because they're so sick of Johnson and how the Republicans are, the radical ones, and how difficult he's been, bring impeachment charges against him. It passes the House, but the Senate does not find him guilty by one vote. If it passes the House, then technically he is impeached, but not removed. Okay, here's Tenure of Office Act. It basically threatened the power of the president because he cannot even fire a member of his own cabinet, but that's what he does anyway, Johnson. And then he is impeached. And remember, we said not removed because the Senate doesn't do it by one vote. Colby's here. I'm doing a video. Hold on. And so Johnson will remain in office but will not seek re-election. So he will not seek to be re-elected. 1868 presidential election, Ulysses S. Grant wins, becomes the 18th president. Remember, he is our guy in the war. So, Colby, you want to look for the blue hat in there? You can put it on, Joel. In that bag. Pull that one out, the blue hat. So Ulysses S. Grant, who Colby will be in a second, is 18th president. He was our guy as Union General. Okay, very good commercial. And so here's Grant with his hat that's doing something crazy. So Grant with the Union hat is going to become 18th president of the United States. Okay, stop. So anyway, 15th Amendment passes. Right to vote cannot be limited due to race. All right. So Republican Party. I should show you Grant again. You've seen him before, but I'll show you the 1868 election. You see here, it's kind of like the Trump election. It's closer in popular vote, and then he stomps Seymour here in electoral. Grant does. Okay, so then we have carpetbagger scallywags. The Republican Party is now going to break up. They're all mad at each other. This radical Republican versus more moderate, plus the whole deal with Johnson. So the scallywags are going to, oh, that's cool. The scallywags are going to be white Southerners that support the Union. You might say, no, that can't possibly be. Yes, there are white Southerners that support the Union, in Tennessee specifically. There are a lot of folks in Tennessee who did follow the Union. Carpetbaggers are Northerners who moved south after the war, and they want to exploit the poor South. Okay, so carpetbaggers. So like, just like this, maybe. The carpet on the floor, can you see it? Carpet on the floor. Carpetbaggers, literally they made a bag out of carpet and they put all their mess in it and they moved to the South. So that was like their luggage. So they get the term carpetbaggers. They move south and they're like swindlers and peddlers and they're selling all this kind of junk and trying to swindle people, basically. And they're known as sort of a bad name. If you know anybody from the North originally, you could call them a carpetbagger, but don't tell them I said that. All right, our African Americans, largest group eager to vote for the first time. Hiram Revels becomes the first African American in the U.S. Senate, and Joseph Rainey, the first African American in the House of Representatives. But these groups all don't get along, which hurts their party. So slaves, many of them moved to the cities. They began to organize their own schools, even though whites protest this. They found their own churches now and get involved in politics, okay? Last thing, big deal though, sharecroppers. You need to know slaves become either sharecroppers or tenant farmers. Sharecropper, you harvest and the owner gets half the profit. Sharecropper has to pay off the local store for the items. So if you have a bad year, you're stuck. Whereas tenant farming, you rent the land and then you're paid for it with profits. So it's a little better situation. You own the mules, you rent the land. Cotton is no longer king. We now have tobacco and textiles right here yarn, we're making clothing now in factories that are coming, and tobacco. Okay, go back, do your essential questions, okay, and I'll check your sheet.